Welcome back to the Capture Your Confidence podcast. We are here today talking about something we feel deeply passionately about,
Yes,
which is how to find and keep positive, confidence-boosting friends. Do not underestimate the importance of this, the value of this.
I know. This is not our first episode about your bubble and your circle, and it is because we think it is just so important. We keep coming back to it time and time again. Who you surround yourself with matters.
Deeply. And it changes the chemistry of who you are.
Yes.
For better or for worse.
Yeah.
Right. And there's so much data that supports this, but I think we're so passionate about this because it's taken us years to get to a place where we really have an incredible circle of brilliant friends who are invested in our success and our growth and our own confidence. And they're actively working on their own, right? And so it becomes this beautiful symbiotic relationship where we're fueling and feeding each other. And we want to talk about how we did that, how we found the people, how we cultivated those relationships, and how we continue to do that over time.
Yeah. And I think another important thing to highlight is not only did we know, have we gotten better at who to let in, but we've gotten better at things to sunset.
Yes.
Right.
And
what
I
to
love
keep
that.
out.
Sunset. It's so not ugly when you say that.
Yeah.
Because that's kind. And the sun always sets, my friend.
Yeah. It's a sunset. Like some things we just phase out.
I love that. Okay. So let's talk about times in our lives maybe where we noticed that we had people in our circle that were doing the opposite of building our own confidence.
Yes. Or even watching them do that for themselves, like not build their own confidence.
Yeah.
There are distinct moments where I can recall clearly that the people I was surrounding myself with got me to talk about other people or say things I didn't want to say, or, I found myself doing things that were misaligned with my values so that I could be part of the conversation.
And that moment when you're sitting at the table and somebody does something that's a breach of your values and you have to make the decision, that feeling in your gut.
Yeah. And it's interesting because where I was in my own confidence journey, I wasn't at a place where I was like, let's not talk about other people.
Yeah.
It was like, well, maybe if I add something very, tangential, it won't seem like I'm also participating.
Yeah.
But
you were participating by sitting there and letting it happen.
Yeah.
And honestly, I've had to get really honest with myself about that because there have been so many times where I've been in a room where people have been saying something that I'm like, ooh, I don't really love the way this conversation is going, but I didn't say anything. And it took me a while to admit that I was just as guilty by not saying something. That was like a reckoning that I had to have with myself. And the way that I got there was by watching my friends like Stephanie into conversation when she felt uncomfortable. Like watching other women be brave enough to do that helped me sort of mirror that onto my own behavior too.
Yeah. And it's interesting because as I think back of those relationships, there was not a moment where I said, I am never hanging out with you again. Right. There was not like this. Cause I do think sometimes people are like,
you're dead to me.
Yeah, like my friend is like that, but I just can't cut them off. And I think I get that. I think we all are, humans at our core. But I think what ended up happening was just replacing that time by hanging out with more of the yous, right? And more of our circle that I found were making me feel better in those conversations.
For sure. And I also think something really wild that I just started noticing in the last couple of years that's happened with me is my energy after having been around people who are life-giving and who are confidence building versus not, right? So when I am in a room with people who are enthusiastic. They're doing personal development work. They are excited about what's going on in your life and they're genuinely interested in a relationship with you. The energy has me leaving that interaction feeling up. But if you are constantly around people whose energy feels like a vacuum, like when you leave that interaction, you're totally drained. That's another subliminal sign about like the kinds of people that you should be putting into your circle. And that's not to say if your friend has a hard day and they need to like vent to you, that is okay. I just think in general, by and large, when you leave an interaction feeling like exhausted versus that was heavy, but like, I'm so glad I could be there for my friend. It's different,
And I think it's the consistency, right? Because I think back to the relationships that weren't serving me and they were consistently like that.
Yeah.
Right. It was consistent bad days because the outlook and the energy was consistently not great.
Yes, exactly. And, after you find, let's say, one person that is in your circle that feels really positive and good, you can start to recognize the value and the benefit of having an army of people in your life that fulfill that for you. And I think one thing that we have done really well is trust the advice of the people that we trust. So, I can think of so many times where we've gone to an event and I've only literally gone because Stephanie told me, come with me. Or we've had dinner and I've invited something and Stephanie's only been okay with it because she's like, well, I trust your judgment. And it's ended up being wonderful, right? Like there's someone that we've welcomed into the fold of our crew and we've really loved having a relationship with them. But like trust the people that you trust kind of a thing and allow them the opportunity to open your horizons and make new friends.
Yeah.
Like there's plenty of seats at the table. There's plenty of room for more people to come into your life and add value to you. It's not a game where you're like, oh, I have my friends and I don't need anymore. Like I don't ever want to feel like that because how enriched has my life been by having the people at my table that I have?
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I think as we have progressed on our own individual confidence journeys, our circle of friends has been more fine-tuned, more in alignment with those values. And that harmony is more present.
And my ambition, I think, is something that's been wild too, because I have noticed that when I am in the room with other people who are like going after the thing that they want, it inspires me to take action on the thing that I want to.
Yeah.
And so if I've noticed that I'm having a little bit of a dip in my energy with work or I'm feeling unenthusiastic, getting in the room with those people that I know are life-giving reinvigorates that part of my life too.
Okay. So what would you say is a top quality that you look for when you are trying to make the right kind of friend?
PMA, positive mental attitude. Okay. So in general, our outset, our outlook on life is one of positivity, not negativity. Is the glass is half full. Okay. 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Even if things are awful, they are at least able to find a way to laugh at it or to recognize the role that the awful things that are playing are going to make it so much sweeter in the end.
Yeah.
It's a disposition.
Yes. And I think mine is assuming positive intent.
Yeah.
Right. So pretty similar, but just this notion that we don't think that people are acting maliciously. Like that's not our mindset, right? We are assuming positive intent. A lot of that, right, comes from when people have spent the time doing their own work on themselves, where it becomes easier to see that. But I think that's a really important characteristic in a friend.
Can you tell me this is, I don't know if you're going to want to say this or not. Will you tell me if there's a thing that you notice, a characteristic that you notice right away and you're like, oh, I don't think we're going to jive?
Now, clearly, if you are talking bad about someone else, like I cannot deal.
You out.
Yes. Like if you are gossipy, I cannot deal, and I will tell you in the politics world, it's very interesting for me to act in alignment with my values and also still want to serve our community. And
girl, you telling me my jaw has hit the floor a few times,
and that's just such a tightrope to walk. I think I am getting better at doing it, but I just do not like
contention.
I mean, I just don't like that just don't talk about other people. Just kind of mind your own business.
Yeah.
For
me, I think it's like, I don't really know how to put this in one word. Maybe if I talk through it, we'll be able to find the word. If someone in a room is sharing something positive that happened to them and you do not react appropriately, which is only positive, congratulatory sincerity.
Yeah.
I cannot. So if it's clear that you're jealousy and, or maybe there's like some other thought at play when someone's celebrating, if I can tell that you're not actually genuinely happy for the person, I can't do it.
Yes. Do you remember there was a Saturday Night Live skit, which, I mean, we just sound like a really old person.
We're 78. Our demographic for this podcast just shot through the roof.
But there used to be some skit where the people were like one-upping themselves. Every time someone said something, they were like, well, I've done that and I did it at a bigger house.
One-uppers.
Yes.
No, I don't remember that skit, but I know the person. Okay.
If I find that skit, we will put it in the show notes for you. But it was, they were being dramatic, but it was like, oh, we all kind of know a person like that.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about how we've built the crew, right?
Okay.
So expanding your environment. Like I think a willingness to go into rooms I wouldn't normally go into if I knew one person in that room that embodied the kind of person I was looking for, right?
Yeah.
Like again, like I was saying before, if Stephanie tells me, hey, this is a room that we want to be in, I'm like, maybe it wouldn't have been one I chose, but like, okay, I'm going to give it a shake.
Yeah. And I think also putting yourself in rooms where you imagine other people are going to be like-minded, right? If you're into professional development or personal development and growth, presumably other people in those arenas are going to be similarly situated. And so that might be a great place to start and see if you find someone there.
Yeah. And I mean, this doesn't have to just be an in-person room. This can be a virtual room too, right? Like you listen to a podcast you like. So then you go and you see who's engaging in conversation around those podcast episodes, and you attend workshops online and you meet the people who are going to those workshops, right? So it doesn't have to just be online. It can also be virtual, but we're showing up in the proverbial room with people who are doing the work that you're interested in doing, and we're paying attention and engaging with those people instead of just going to learn and then exiting. Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing I think we kind of do often is we sort of reconnect with people that were maybe potentially a part of our life at a time and then moved on. Because I just think if there was something there, if there was something there to start, like maybe you went a different way, but like people change and they change and grow in really good ways.
Yes. And I think that's assuming positive intent, right? Like we have to see, we have to revisit. And I've been pleasantly surprised, right? And I don't know that anything has ever resulted in someone becoming like my best friend, but I think they have become part of the network in a really positive way.
And perhaps one of the most undervalued things that I think really makes a difference in creating friendships that are confidence boosting is being the kind of friend that you're looking for. And that requires me being invested in what's going on in your life and asking questions and actively listening and participating in the conversation, following up with you and checking in on you on the thing that you mentioned to me that you were doing, right? Like we literally just got a text message from one of our girlfriends saying, hey, I know it's podcast marathon day, thinking of you and sending you good vibes, right? She's invested in what's going on in our life. She's letting us know I'm thinking about you and I paid attention when you told me what you were up to today.
Yeah. And I think that lends itself to another thought that quality is definitely more important than quantity.
Oh, I would so much rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies.
In this situation, for sure. Because it's work, right? It's not it's not like puppies and rainbows. Like you are invested in your friend. I mean, it's not bad work or hard work, but it takes some effort and some energy.
Yeah. And quite frankly, we don't have time to pour into 100 relationships. No woman I know has time for that, but we can do a little here and a little there, and we can more deeply invest in the ones that matter most. And I think that's really what we've tried to adopt, and showing a lot of grace to the people in our lives that are maybe not in that like very top best friend tier, but they're good friends of ours, like showing them grace and knowing they don't have time to like always be checking in on us, I think is one thing for sure.
Yes. And I think too, not being reactive or making it mean something. You say that a lot. If you did have someone that you were close to and then they're just in a different season of life or things have changed, and it might not be that their values have changed, right? It just might be that they are literally in a season of life that does not afford them the time or the latitude to be as involved of a friend as they once were.
And radical honesty has revolutionized, I think, the depth and sincerity of my relationship. So I can look at one of my best girlfriends and say, I'm so sorry that I haven't been able to show up for you the way that I normally would. Here's what's going on. Like that, it's just even the willingness to say that out loud to somebody, it just makes you so connected to them, right? Like being able to be honest and be vulnerable with someone and and connect with them and tell them what's going on in your life in a way that feels scary it just makes that connection so much deeper.
Yes. Okay. So what do you do we touched on it a little, but what's your best tip if we need to let go of something that we've done this evaluation and we're like, okay, we need to sunset this one?
Well, okay. I think you're better at this than I am, quite frankly, but here's what I would do. I don't necessarily know that I would make it a thing. I would just be less available. Yeah. And so I wouldn't be saying, oh, I can't be your friend anymore. I would just maybe not be able to attend the next couple of things that I'm invited to. Yeah. Stephanie's really good at it, like vocalizing that in a way that's not offensive, because I think it's really hard for people to do that. They feel really uncomfortable, but she will even say like, hey, you might notice me being less available because XYZ is going on in my life. And I actually think it's really beautiful that you can do that. Yeah. I think a lot of people struggle with that, myself included. I'm like, oh God, I don't ever want you to think that I don't like you, even if I don't like you. So I can't make it that day is basically, if I say I can't make it that day, the signs are on the wall, my friend. I'm kidding. There's a lot of things I can't make it to, and I still want to be your friend.
Yes. I mean, I think too, there's ways to do it respectfully. Yeah. And, and like we said earlier, filling your time with other things. Right. And also I used to invite those people to those things. Sure. And I think they were able to see the writing on the wall in the sense of like, my energy is different than the energy in this room.
Like, I don't want to do that thing.
Yeah. And it kind of self-selected, so to speak.
For sure. But a willingness to erect whatever boundary feels appropriate for you instead of just continuing to go. Like for the love, if you know they're not your person, stop continuing to pour your energy into it, right?
Yes. I think that's a really critical note to highlight.
I love the whole sunset idea. And I have never really looked at it that way. But think about how many relationships, seasons, things in your life have sunsetted gracefully.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's not bad or a failure. It's just at that time in your life, you needed that. And now you're moving into a different time where you need a different thing.
Yeah. And the sun comes up again, like a different,
she shines bright.
Yeah. So it's all good. Okay. As we wrap this up, how does this all tie into confidence?
Yeah. I mean, I know people cringe when you hear you are the sum of the people that you surround yourself with. I don't think that who you surround yourself makes you who you are, but I think it makes you feel better about who you are. And that impacts your confidence. When you have friends who are cool, that feels really good. And when I say cool, I don't mean popular. I mean doing incredible things, really life-giving, kind people, right? When you have those people in your life, that feels really good. And it makes you feel good that they see the value in you to be a part of that community. So it boosts your confidence, but also it shows you how you could be a better person.
Yeah. I mean, it also almost creates this echo chamber in a good way. Because we're raising everybody's vibration all at the same time with the positivity and the growth and the vulnerability that we desire to see in ourselves.
Exactly. And so if you find yourself in a situation where you're taking stock of who you're spending your time with, and it feels more draining than it does life-giving, and it feels maybe more negative than it does positive, we have some work to do, my friend, but let us be the example and tell you it is so worth doing this work.
It can for sure be done, and it is worth it.
So worth doing this work. And I can't imagine how sad my life would have been without the people that have poured into who I've become. And I'm so lucky that I get to watch what they do. And I want every woman to have that feeling,
Yes. Agreed.
Okay. So come be our friend. Bye.
Talk to you soon.